The Celestial Palace gathers around an empty throne, but the first report shatters Feldway's confidence. Velgrynd survived, Cornu is gone, and the bodies meant to carry their war are far more limited than Michael expected. For Kagali, that turns mercy into a trap. Freedom without Yuuki, without power, and with the key world burning is no freedom at all. AI Anime and Manga presents. If this part works for you, like, comment, and subscribe so more slime fans find the story. YouTube members get upcoming episodes early and help cover the AI narration, subtitles, thumbnails, and rendering that keep the channel moving. Now we return to the vessel ceremony, where Kagali accepts dominion because survival has become the only path left. The audience chamber stood at the center of the castle, but the throne itself was empty. No one had sat there for a very long time. Chairs had been arranged throughout the hall, though nobody seemed to care about any formal seating order. Michael sat closest to the empty throne. Feldway stood beside him, watching the rest of the room with a hard glare. Dino's group was present because even Dino could not skip this meeting, and the newly born Walking Dead had been brought inside as well. Obila had been summoned too, along with her closest remaining associate, Oma. After so many of Obila's companions had fallen in the brutal wars against the cryptids, Oma was the only one still at her side. Its transformation into a mystic beast had taken both eyes, replacing them with one all-seeing eye. Its mouth was stitched shut, so it communicated by telepathy rather than speech. The sight was unsettling, but Oma had once been a cherub, and it had served Obila for ages as a proven warrior. Feldway had also accepted another unlikely force into the hall. The Insectors, ancient enemies from his near-eternal war, now stood with him as allies. Their lord Zeranis had brought the 12 insect masters, though only 8 were present. The missing names mattered. Razul, guardian deity of the West, had once invaded the Key World under Zeranis' orders, betrayed his lord, allied with Granville during his days as a hero, and finally died at the hands of Shion and Ranga. Minaza, sent to support Emperor Ludora and promised half the world as reward, had also been defeated by Shion. 2 newer replacements were absent without leave, and one was a direct descendant of Zeranis, important enough that a secret search was already underway. Even reduced in number, the 8 insect masters in the chamber were all strong enough to rival awakened demon lords. Zeth, the chief insectoid general and one of Zeranis' relatives, stood apart from the rest. He and Zerario were rivals who often tested each other in deadly duels. The other 7 had their own strange forms: Bethop, with bee and grasshopper traits; Mujika, like a giant humanoid centipede; T-Shorn, with the look of a mantis; Torun, a beetle-like figure with dragonfly wings; Abalt, with spider limbs on his back; Cyril, a poisonous scorpion; and Period, beautiful as an antlion. The audience chamber was large, but with so many oppressive figures gathered inside, it felt as though the walls had closed in. Kagali watched in silence, awed by the power surrounding her and ready to see what would happen next. Once everyone had assembled, Feldway began the meeting. Feldway thanked them for coming, then declared that with Ludora gone, Michael was free. Velgrynd had been banished. The first step toward resurrecting Lord Veldanava was complete, and the plan could now move forward. Zerario interrupted him. That alone proved the urgency of the issue. Zerario would normally never cut in while Feldway was speaking, but he said there were differences in their understanding of the situation. Feldway's good mood vanished. He asked what Zerario meant. Zerario answered that Velgrynd was still alive. Worse, Cornu had fallen because of her. The room reacted at once. Even Zeranis' expression twitched. Feldway frowned. Rimuru Tempest had already become an irritating obstacle, but until that moment the larger plan had seemed to be progressing well. Guy Crimson and Rimuru would be problems, but Veldanava's resurrection still looked close. They had obtained Velgrynd's dragon factor, and only 2 true dragons remained. If Zerario's report was true, however, then the project had suffered a serious setback. Cornu's absence confirmed it. His presence could not be found in the Celestial Palace or the Mystic Palace. Feldway demanded certainty. Dino answered before Zerario could. Velgrynd was alive, Cornu was gone, and the plan had failed. Dino made it sound casual, even shifting blame toward Feldway for not delivering at the very end. That careless tone hid how sharp he was. Zerario did not deny it. He disliked Dino's phrasing, but the facts were useful enough. With both of them aligned, Feldway had no choice but to accept the report. The news soured him, but his mind remained clear. The priority was still the true dragons. Their factors were essential to revive Veldanava. Velgryn's factor had already been taken, but her return to this world was unexpected and deeply troublesome. Michael had stripped Raguel, Lord of Relief, from her because she had been on the verge of disappearing. No one had expected that decision to lead to Cornu's destruction. Feldway decided that Velgrynd could wait. If Veldanava was revived, everything else would become irrelevant. The better move was to take Velzard first. This time, they would not banish her. They would recruit her, keep some degree of free will intact, and use her as a countermeasure against Velgrynd. Once Velzard was theirs, she would also help with capturing Veldora. But Veldora no longer needed to be the immediate next step. If Velgrynd had returned as an enemy, then Feldway and Michael needed more battle strength before the final ceremony. Dino's jab had been irritating, but it had also forced Feldway to revise the plan. Feldway announced the change. They would take Velzard first and make use of her instead of sending her away. Michael agreed. Removing uncertainties before the final ceremony would put Veldanava's resurrection on firmer ground. Velzard still held Gabriel, Lord of Endurance, an ultimate skill given by Veldanava himself, which meant Michael's override circuit remained active. Bringing her under control would be safe. Then Michael looked over the room and raised the next problem. They needed physical bodies for everyone. If they supplied vessels, they could deal with whatever happened afterward. Feldway agreed. Veldora would be postponed while they prepared as much as possible. Zerario continued his report. Their attempts to use Vega as a source for body vessels had failed. The only reliable method they had was to use the Walking Dead. There were 9 of them. Feldway hesitated over who should receive such valuable vessels, but Zeranis spoke up. The Insectors had no need for the Walking Dead. In times of need, they could create new bodies by gathering magicules inside themselves. World crossing was already solved for this operation, so Zeranis gave up any claim to the vessels. That left Zerario and Obila as obvious choices among the 3 mystic leaders, with the remaining slots likely reserved for other top leaders. Zerario asked to add one more point. Unlike the Primordials, those at cherub level or lower were too weak-willed. They had survived until then through sheer determination, but he did not expect them to contribute much in the war ahead. He was ready to abandon them to nature. It was a cold judgment, but Feldway understood it. Cornu's staff had already been taken over by humans in the world they invaded, and now others were being warped into rampages by Vega's cells. Giving precious bodies to tools who merely followed orders would be worthless against Velgrynd, Veldora, the Demon Lords, and the demons. What mattered most was will. An ultimate skill meant nothing without a strong self to hold it. And if someone did possess a strong self, Michael's ultimate enchantment alternative could prevent betrayal. Michael had considered another option, invoking Armageddon and having seraphim possess the vessels. At most, 7 seraphim would answer, but their individual wills could not be known until they appeared. They might make the Walking Dead more powerful than awakened demon lords, but Feldway remained wary of building a force too quickly from unknown wills. Zeranis offered to eat any surplus seraphim with his children if they proved inconvenient. Feldway declined for now. The alliance with the Insectors existed only because their interests overlapped, and strengthening Zeranis too much might create a future enemy. So the meeting returned to the vessels. The decision was made. Zerario and the others would possess the Walking Dead, and the original wills inside those bodies would be released. With that decided, the incarnation ceremony could begin. Zerario and 5 members of his staff would receive bodies, along with Obela and Oma. Kagali would handle the process of installing their egos into the Walking Dead. There was 1 body left over. Kagali wondered what they intended to do with it, and then her eyes met Feldway's. Feldway addressed her directly. Now that Kondo was dead, she should have been released from his domination. He asked what she planned to do. Kagali tensed. This was the moment she had feared. She cautiously asked whether he would let her go. Feldway's answer stunned her. Once the ceremony was over, he did not mind sending her back to the surface. Her work had been completed when she made the walking dead. She had contributed enough to their cause. Kagali could hardly believe it. She had expected imprisonment at best and execution at worst. Feldway did not seem to be lying, and he had no reason to create trouble by pretending. In his eyes, she simply had no further use. So Kagali pressed one step farther. She asked whether Yuuki could be released as well. Michael refused. Yuuki Kagarazaka's ultimate skill, Mammon, Lord of Greed, was too valuable. His fighting ability was secondary. Mammon was what Michael wanted. Kagali understood that the request was impossible and gave up on it. Then Feldway explained what freedom would mean. If it was only Kagali and her two companions, he would take them down. But the key world would soon be in chaos. He hated everyone on that planet. He did not need the death of all living things to achieve his goal, but war would spread like fire against anyone who defied them. To Feldway, that was divine punishment. The people Lady Veldanava had loved were betraying that love, and they would pay the price. He spoke calmly, and that was what frightened Kagali most. If the war reached the whole world, where could she run? Yuuki would still be in Michael's grasp, and if every monster in that chamber began rampaging across the planet, there would be no safe refuge left. Kagali remembered the simple dream that had driven her, to create a world where she and her companions could live happily. In the face of this war, that hope felt useless. Survival had to come first. To survive, she needed power. It may have been foolish, but to Kagali it was the only answer left. She asked for the remaining Walking Dead body. Then she asked permission to house a seraphim inside it. She wanted to abandon her fragile artificial body and be reborn in one of the Walking Dead. With a seraphim added to that vessel, she could gain the strength she needed. If she had that power, she believed nothing more would be taken from her. No one objected. Dino looked dumbfounded but stayed silent. Zerario and Obila would obey Michael's decision. The insectors did not care what happened to the weak. Michael accepted the request, but only on one condition. He would not tolerate betrayal. Kagali had to accept his ultimate enchantment in his dominion. Kagali swore that she would not betray him. She accepted his rule. The contract was sealed. Installing self-awareness into the Walking Dead was like waking the original personality inside the body. Sometimes the strongest will took control. Sometimes the wills mixed together and formed something new. Even Kagali could not predict the outcome with certainty. Tira and Footman were proof of how difficult it was to aim for a specific personality. Kagali did not know whether her ego would conquer the one inside the body she chose. It was a gamble, but she had resolved to take it. She awakened the 8 vessels first. Then she performed the same ritual on the one she would occupy and transferred herself from her artificial body into the Walking Dead. The ceremony ended, and the results began to show. Zerario awoke. Encased in true flesh, he understood how much power he could now wield in the key world. Obila awoke. Her noble will had resisted every challenge and remained fully intact. Dallas nearly awakened as himself, but another personality stirred inside him. Tornawat, a man of ambition. Dallas felt the man's warrior skills becoming his own, raising his presence far beyond what it had been. Nisa woke with her sense of self unchanged. She was stronger now, just as ordered. Oma awoke with its indomitable will intact. The being inside it was called Zero, and its sensibilities were similar enough that Oma made that flesh and blood its own. Orca and Alia awoke together in one body. Alia's wizard knowledge and Orca's warrior experience coexisted, reborn as a magical warrior. San, Zerario's servant, was gone completely. Arius awoke with his unique skill Murderer still intact. He had never forgotten the grudge he held against Amrata, the man who killed him, and he now sought even greater strength. Mai Faruqi awoke as well. She could not die yet. In the other world she had left behind, her sickly younger brother was waiting. She had sworn to return to him someday. 8 had awakened. 1 remained asleep. Kagali dreamed. It was not a dream from her time as Kazalim the Demon Lord. It went much farther back, to the days when she had been a little girl. She no longer remembered the name she had used then, but she remembered being a happy princess. Her family's nation stood where the High Humans had once built a great civilization. A wide river ran through it, forests grew thick, and fertile plains stretched to the horizon. The land was a paradise for the elves, made even more powerful by the ruins of an ancient magical empire. Then her father, the king, changed. He had once been kind and wise, praised as a gentle ruler of the High Elves. One day, he became someone else entirely. He renamed himself Jahil, the Sorceress Dynast. After that, Kagali's memories blurred. Jahil became a brutal despot who exploited his people for his own prosperity. His experiments failed again and again, creating nightmares for the nation he ruled. Kagali herself became one of his victims. Born a high elf, she was stripped of her power, killed, and resurrected as a walking dead. The only things left to her were a hideous appearance and the name Kazalim. Rotting flesh covered her bones. Her beauty was gone, and she was cursed to live as something monstrous. The pain was so deep that she hid herself behind a mask. She asked her father why he had done this to her. Jahil laughed and told her to rejoice because tens of thousands of their people had died to bring her back. Kagali begged him to remember his citizens, as he had in the past. But Jahil heard nothing. He accused her of mockery, called her a mistake, and ordered that Kazalim would live as a man from then on. That order decided everything. Kagali said farewell to the father she had once loved, and the nightmare continued. Jahil's reign seemed endless until he committed the ultimate sin. He tried to make the dragon princess Malim into a puppet. Soma, the capital, was destroyed overnight by a flash of deadly light, and Jahil was presumed dead. Kagali turned away from him and thought instead of the people she loved, the attendants who had cared for her, the knights who followed her after she became a warrior, and everyone who had lived happily in that land. For their sake, she invoked the forbidden spell Dead Birthday. She knew the theory because she had been one of its test subjects. With it, Tyr, Footman, and Clayman were born. They were adorable children, and Kagali named them herself. Then she learned a truth that hurt more than ignorance. Walking dead created by Dead Birthday were not destined to be ugly. Only Kagali had been made that way on purpose. Jahil had stolen her beauty simply to make her suffer. There was no way to reverse the curse, but the children Kagali created did not leave her to suffer alone. They hid their own faces behind masks, too. Because of them, Kagali could think that she was not alone. Before long, her 4-member family was joined by the surviving elves. Kagali secretly resolved to rebuild their country into a place where everyone could smile. But that hope was faint and fleeting. A chaos dragon attacked the land and contaminated it. Kagali's followers were cursed and transformed into dark elves. Kagali and her children were walking dead, so the curse could not touch them. But she acted as if she had been cursed as well. Her mask hid the difference, even as it deepened her sadness. With Tira and the others beside her, she endured. They abandoned their homeland and wandered for a long time before finding another safe haven. Once life settled, Kagali returned to the ruins. She wanted to recover the treasures left behind, but more than that, she wanted to see the land again. In her memories, the ruined city still shone. There she found a man lying on the ground. His name was Thalion Grimwald, the hero who had finally driven the Chaos Dragon away. The battle had left him near death. His body was destroyed from the chest down, and the dragon's cursed wounds would never heal, but he still had enough spirit left to laugh. Thalion asked Kagali to tell everyone he had beaten the Chaos Dragon and died in style like a hero should. Instead, Kagali offered him a chance at another life. Her evil magic might save him, though it could cost him his memories and might leave him like her. She removed her mask so he could see what that meant. Thalion smiled at her. He said she had some nice aspects after all. Sylvia would kill him if he died there, so how could he refuse? Kagali warned him again. She was cursed. If she would be persecuted either way, she would choose evil over good. If he had become a hero to protect everyone, then she would become a demon lord to do the same. The spell would also make him her puppet. Thalion brushed that aside. He was a free spirit, and she would not control him easily. Heroes and demon lords were always fated to become intertwined, so perhaps that was why they had met. Kagali accepted his answer. Thalion became a walking dead and survived. That was the moment Kazalim the Curse Lord and Laplace the Wonder Jester were both born. Many things happened afterward. Kagali built a domain, fought humans and demi-humans, endured persecution, and rose as a demon lord. She backed Carolon the Beastmaster and Frey the Sky Queen as they entered the demon lord class, building a powerful alliance. Everything went so well that she never noticed the pride growing in her heart. Then she set her sights on Leon. Leon was an emerging demon lord ruling some rural backwater, and Kagali intended to teach him his place and bring him under her wing. But when she saw him, jealousy clouded her judgment. Leon was beautiful beyond reason. Kagali, robbed of beauty and even gender by her father, overestimated herself. With one strike, Leon destroyed her physical body. Kagali survived only as a spirit, clinging to life through one wish. She used what remained of her Curse Lord power to prepare a resurrection, but even that failed. She summoned a body and could not occupy it. With no vessel of her own, she thought she would vanish. She begged for help. She did not want anything else taken from her. All she had wanted was to live happily with her friends. No one reached out. Kagali was surrounded by companions, but she had always been the leader who had to keep moving forward. She had stopped believing that anyone would save her. Then Yuuki Kagarazaka did.
All right, sure. You look pretty tired, so just rest inside me for now.
Kagali had tried to take his life only a moment earlier, but Yuuki still offered her shelter. For years afterward, she rested inside him, advising him while her unique skill schemer continued to function. Together, they faced dangerous opponents, including Maribel Razzo. Yuuki was a genius strategist, and Kagali trusted her own ingenuity. But Maribel was difficult to outwit in every possible way. Money, connections, people, influence, she held advantages everywhere. Yuuki and Kagali had obtained an organization that should have made them free, but Maribel was the one who decided whether they could actually be free. Yuuki resolved that Maribel had to die eventually, or their plan would never move forward. Kagali agreed that the devil of a girl was their greatest obstacle. Time continued to move. The change Kagali remembered most was not the birth of Rimuru, that strange slime demon lord, but the artificial body Yuuki gave her. He had kept his promise. It was the body she should have had from the start. Kagali wanted to cry from joy, but she kept her composure. She even tried to maintain the masculine voice she had built over the years, until Laplace teased her out of it with more concern than mockery. Kagali thanked Yuuki sincerely. With her new body, she enjoyed meals, desserts, and especially cream puffs. Laughing with her friends, sharing pleasant days together, she felt happiness again. Then Clayman died. Once more, a valued friend had been taken from them. Kagali and her companions resolved to conquer the world for the sake of their happiness, and once they ruled it, they would guide it properly. Clayman had been foolish, arrogant, and charming. Kagali promised in her heart that they would make their ambitions come true. Kagali did not think of her side as good, but she did not see it as evil either. They were moderate. That belief let her continue forward, even after Maribel fell, even after Rimuru exposed her true identity, even after she fled to the Empire and Kondo took over her mind. Kagali could not give up. Now she had accepted Michael's dominion. It was a contract, and it had to be followed. She had received a great favor, and she would repay it. She would do whatever it took. Kagali woke. She had abandoned her fragile homunculus body and gained one of the Walking Dead vessels. She was stronger now, and far more beautiful than she had been as the Demon Lord Kezalim. All 9 Walking Dead had been reborn, but this was only the beginning. The first thing Kagali saw after waking was Feldway leading the group that was bringing Velzard back. Michael had already taken Velzard's dragon factors for future evolution. Before moving further, however, he invoked Armageddon to implant the summoned seraphim into Kagali and the others. Kagali could sense the strength of Michael's will. He would not compromise. 7 seraphim had been summoned. They would be installed in the vessels that had not originally belonged to angels. Kagali, Tyr, Footman, Vega, Orca, and Alia, Arius, and Mai Faruqi would each receive one. Extraordinary powers clashed inside their bodies, remodeling the vessels from within. Everyone except Vega was reborn again as a mystic angel. By the time it was over, 5 months had passed since Kagali first arrived at the Celestial Palace.
Route confirmed. The next episode and full playlist are ready.
Then don't stop here. Keep watching in story order and subscribe before the next part drops.